G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Stuff. The men's rights movement. Rights are a complex issue because most people don't understand rights. Rights are intangible. They're not goods and services. They are not products or the labour of others. They are of your own effort. So they're from God. So what is the men's rights movement? Well, believe it or not, men have been fighting for their rights for a long time. The fight for men's rights goes all the way back to the rights of man, 1791 to 1792, a foundational political treatise by Thomas Paine defending the French Revolution, popular sovereignty, and natural rights against aristocratic privilege. The government is only legitimate if it protects the rights of the individual, such as your liberty, your property, your security, and that provides resistance to oppression, not is the cause of oppression. And thus, Thomas Paine advocated for a Republican government. He was a classical educated liberal. He knew about the liberal democracies of Greece, the Republic of Rome, and key aspects. Defense of the Revolution. He responded to Edward Burke's criticism of the French Revolution. Now, I am of the opinion that the popular revolution was a legitimate protection of rights. Robespierre's socialist revolution, the Jacobins, were an oppression of men's rights and led to Napoleon. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will. Natural rights and social contract. Thomas Paine asserted that human rights are inherent and not dependent on government, which only exists to secure them. Paine's critique of monarchy, he argued against hereditary governments of any kind, not just aristocratic, but any kind of non-representative democratic systems. Although he advocated for a sole democratic system based on the idea of the Republic. Again, the Roman Republic is based on Plato's Republic. Again, Thomas Paine would have known this. He was educated. So, social reform. Thomas Paine advocated for social security, public employment for the poor, and widespread education. This became known as public education. Now, the global impact, just not, initially declared a seditious person in Britain. The rights of man became the cornerstone for democratic, radical, and working class movements in both Britain and the United States. Of course, as you know, the movements were later hijacked by Marx and his Jacobin allies, both in France and Britain and, of course, America. Sorry, not both. All in Now, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen, 1789, was not written by Paine. Paine's work is a foundation, right? It is the cornerstone of modern democracy and modern governance. And, of course, modern parliamentarianism does not just solely come from Paine. You have Cromwell, you actually do have the Napoleonic Code, and many other works which do stem in some part from Paine's work. However, remember, Paine was a liberal, not left, not right. So you can see that he argued for governments that should be designed for the benefit and betterment, not just the benefit now, but the betterment of society, and not for the upkeep of monarchies, which you can argue Britain has failed in that respect. Into the modern era, the rights of man, men are human, men have been dehumanized. Men have lost a lot of rights. The draft, child support, alimony, no paid paternity leave, expectation of work. You enter any relationship, there is an expectation that you are employed or going to provide benefit. You cannot be raped and abused. You go to court and try and get, even if it's another man, you try, right? If a woman seduces you, drugs you, takes your sperm, gets pregnant, it's consensual. It's consensual, Your Honour, and she gets believed. Punishment. You get the greater punishment for crime, particularly against women, but any crime, you get the greater punishment. Genital mutilations. In some countries, genital mutilation of a man is mandatory still. Right? Circumcision is often forced or thrust upon men, and it is actually to your detriment. Unequal abortion and abandonment laws. You cannot ask for your child. It's killed. You cannot stop her from killing a male child. You cannot stop her from abandoning your children and the state taking them from you. Popular cultures, particularly Hollywood, has always portrayed women as the victims of men asking for abortions for unwanted babies and abandoning the women anyway. A lot of abandonment may have actually, we'll never know the truth, because it is, again, popular culture, the mandated paranoid conspiracies of feminism. Now, this is the problem. Just because you have the right to speak your mind does not mean you have the right to be heard or believed. Yet, what does feminism ask? Believe all women. That's a violation of your rights. You don't have to believe all women, particularly when they say, I love you. We love you a long time. You want to believe all women now, still? But men's rights has developed into agencies and advocacy groups, and out of that we get Red Pill, and from there we get mgtow. Right? The manosphere is a broad spectrum. It narrows to the Red Pill movement, the idea that the truth must be spoken, even if it's to the detriment of those to the detriment of government, because the idea, and this comes again back to the ideas from Thomas Paine, the betterment of society, speaking the truth, is for the betterment of society. Even in the short term, there's a detriment to individuals, right? If you did not want that detrimental effect, if you did not want your reputation harmed or ruined, you shouldn't have committed the crime or social faux pas. And if it's a faux pas, why are you so scared? Often the cover-up is worse than the crime. Oh, except the case of Jeffrey Epstein. But even then, you still have cover-ups, and they're worse than the crime, because you're complicit in the crime now. Now, many people do not understand the men's rights movement. There is both the social and political movement. The political movement wants systemic change through law, whereas the social movement wants systemic is populist ground up. It wants to change men for the benefit of men, so you know your rights, and eventually that will lead to society abandoning laws without force or coercion. Men's rights already emerged in the 70s as a broader men's movement, as a counterance to feminism, where feminism, particularly with the draft, feminists and the draft, and of course the reproductive rights movement, was pretty much putting men on the chopping block for everything, child support, family law, you name it. So, core areas of focus for activists in the men's rights activist sphere. You understand there's multiple key areas here. Family law. This is the primary focus, where men are discriminated against for child custody, increasingly seen only as a means of child support, and we all know that child is not your biological offspring. It is her. She is the child you are supporting. She is using biological offspring that she gave birth to, who won in no, sorry, 2 in 10 of those children are not his. And even when the courts know the child is not his, right? I have seen this in France, where a woman with a black child is collecting white child support from a white husband, former husband, and claims he is the father, that he just ate too much chocolate. I kid you not. That is how corrupt the system is. So men have family court bias. You can look at it, right? If women could say, oh, there is bias because there is 51% of CEOs are men, that's bias, but they never complain that 99% of models are female. They never complain that the majority of sex workers are female, that female sex workers get way more than men, particularly in sex movies, that men actually get worse than the minimum wage in sex movies and are often unpaid in sex movies because you had the privilege of fucking a beautiful woman, apparently. There's my F-bomb. Right. Trying to limit myself and control my behaviours to better myself. Alright, so we also have, right, women are 77% more likely to be monetized on YouTube. Even at an early phase, you'll see, particularly on Twitch, recently there was a botting experiment showing, right? Botting of Asmund Gold doubled his viewership. Then they took away the bots. It raised 50,000. It fell 50,000. It didn't change when the botting shield was activated. So it started 54,000. Without botting shield, it went up 50,000. When botting shield was turned back on, it was down again. Then they did it to Hassan. Most of his audience was wiped out when the botting shield was activated. So Hassan is actually a fake product with maybe a few thousand real followers. Don't get me started on the women. Botting is widespread on Twitch. That's why they will never leave Twitch. That's why you hear about people making tens and hundreds of millions on Twitch and big Twitch partnership deals. Those venture capital money is gone. Most of them are now broke, crying broke, doing modeling jobs, OnlyFans, direct prostitution, living out of each other's pocket in group homes now. Desperately, particularly the 30-year-olds, looking for a husband to latch onto. Thought you were strong and independent or rich. Yeah, a lot of them have property and that's their real income. So, there's in employment, in entertainment, there is a huge bias against men. You do not see Jennifer Lawrence wanting her female co-stars paid as much as her, but her wanting to be paid as much as her male co-stars. Which is why nobody wants to hire her. Domestic violence. Male victims are ignored, laughed at, ridiculed, or called weak and insecure. Women are championed even when she is lying. Education. In education, there is an overperformance of women and an underperformance of boys in school. High rates of mass suicide, less government funding for men's health compared to women's. Women's groups get $1 million on average per year. Men get 1/10 of that per year. Men's health. Prostate cancer. When's the last time you saw an ad for prostate cancer? Now do women's breast cancer every month. When we do have a Are You OK movement in Australia, advocating for men's mental health. It is spreading around the world. You have other movements for boldness, not just for patent boldness, which is curable, but it is the social stigma, right, where women just increasingly discriminate against men for not having a full head of hair, while women themselves, they get treatment for boldness, funded treatment for wigs, weaves, huge funding, huge amount of money spent on weaves every year by health groups. But in education, underperformance of boys, because boys are held back at school, they are given restricted. There's class women's only computer days. So boys sit around doing nothing because there's no teacher, no supervision, no work given to them, nothing. Boys are openly uneducated. And women are not, because increasingly single mothers, women are not taking an interest in their boys' education or giving them help or teaching them. We have to start teaching boys out there and men to be self-starters, to be self-educators. Are you okay? I want you and others, and we all start asking each other whenever we notice a sharp decline in behavior or a decrease in activity, are you okay? In the comments below, even if you only say for the algorithm, I want mgtow to start commenting and watching videos in full and commenting on videos. Every video you watch, please try to watch it to the full. Every video you watch, please consider leaving a like. And every video, are you okay? For the algorithm. People understand. Women know social manipulation and are using it against us. If we break the algorithm, YouTube cannot discriminate against us. Legal and criminal justice is the second harshest punishment. Of course, the first being family law, but criminal law is the second. Harshest punishments are handed out to men, particularly if it is a crime against women. And of course, the issue of male-only military conscription. Reproductive rights, of course, you have no right. Once you ejaculate, you have no right to that sperm. You have no right to that baby. That baby, it may not even be yours, but you are held legally and financially responsible if she says so. You have no right. If a woman gets pregnant, she has no right to tell you. If a woman abandons her child, she is not held criminally liable, and that child is not handed to you by the state. If she calls you an abuser, there's no legal recourse. Men's rights do not exist in the modern era. Men's rights has led to anti-feminism, the red pill movement, and of course we cannot deny that there is misandry. But can we agree that not all misandry is not a institutional hatred, right? Rather, it is an extreme prejudice against men that is institutionalized by women into government, right? The governments are misandrous, but it's not institutionalized by the government. It's institutionalized by women in the government. And, of course, by women, I also mean male feminists. They're not men, they're male feminists. So, the red pill movement, common metaphor for those in the manosphere for waking up and realizing the reality. And that's what it is. It's about not the reality itself, by men. Reality, full stop. Okay? It is revelations. It is seeing the world for what it is, not what women want you to think it is. They want you to think everything's rosy, economically and politically, so they can keep using and abusing you through the government. Anti-feminism, of course, is a movement opposed to modern feminism, that they are not about equity or equality, but actively harming men for the benefit of women, whether it's political or economic or social. Organizations such as Southern Poverty Law, enemies of the manosphere. The biggest enemy is the ADL and the Southern Poverty Law Center. Hand in hand, those two organizations have a network across the globe through George Soros. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center has categorized men's group as part of a hateful ideology under the banner of male supremacy. They call it misogyny, where in fact, the Red Pill movement, mgtow, and the manosphere in general is all about hatred of women rather than a legitimate push for human rights. Remember, the rights of man was about rights for all mankind, not for men, right? It's just that man became a common term for human and has stuck ever since. Whereas in the modern era, of course, when women talk about rights, they talk about privileges for themselves. Now, there are many disputes within the manosphere, particularly how to deal with false rape allegations, because the Supreme Court has ruled that lying is a human right. I think, did they say human right or protected by First Amendment? Might be protected by First Amendment. If anybody knows which one I'm wrong on. But again, gender equality. If they falsely accuse you of domestic violence, somehow heavier punishments on you are not compensated or relieved. There is rarely relief from the court, and there's rarely punishment for the court. So how to deal with the First Amendment when women can make false allegations and the state will not protect you from slander? So really, ultimately, the men's rights movement is about the state's failure to protect your rights and the rights of all, not just the privileged few. So women have become the aristocracy, and you've seen it. They call each other by titles. They call each other queens, and they call black men kings. But can you think of any government law that lets you have decisions such as the COVID jab, right, military service, or any rights, or everything is 100% your financial responsibility, even when she's pregnant, right? Now again, if you take on someone to be your wife, then that is different. But again, where's the equality? There's no, women want their cake and they eat it too. There is 100% guaranteed that society is biased towards what makes the most profit for the government. They don't actually care about private businesses either. That's the allies, of course, who exploit you, but ultimately, yes, the laws are for the few, not the many. Yes, 30 to 40 million males deprived of life since 1973. The white population has been genocided. But it's now spreading, right? Men are the underclass. Men are waking up to that. The COVID scam. But of course, they're making it about capitalism. And socialism will give you lots of answers. No! Socialism is the root cause of this problem. Socialists spread feminism. You look at China. China funds feminism around the world, except in China. Feminism is a dirty word in China, because it's an insult to the state. Because the state supposedly enacts equal rights for all. Supposedly. But trust me, woman commits shoplifting in China, she's almost guaranteed to get away with it. Unless it's a state store. Private enterprise, yeah, free reign. That's why a lot of businesses now make people are locked. They make you scan your ID and put your credit card into the thing, and they scan you. China is getting so sophisticated now in anti-shoplifting because of what they call grab hags, women who just steal and will not pay. Again, you try that at home and see how far you get. Or even men in China, see how far they get. Remember, folks, they do call America the prison state because of their high incarceration rate. But other states and other countries are lying. China has way more percentage of incarceration, particularly of young men, for slavery. But they don't call it. Right? They do not publish their stats. And when they do, of course, they're at the low end. Right? So, do not believe most of the world when it comes to human rights, particularly when there's money involved. Particularly the fact that prisons are a for-profit industry now should tell you everything, where everything is headed. So if you're not part of the manosphere, if you're not part of Red Pill, that's, why? If you're a man, why aren't you part of the manosphere? Why are you a male feminist? Does anybody see any benefit to a male feminist whatsoever? unless, of course, they are psychologically and emotionally damaged and raised by single mothers and completely brainwashed. And that yes, I do understand that when someone's brainwashed, they actually actively hurt when they try to break free of the programming. I wonder if it's possible to teach you deprogramming. It's a self-awareness to teach you how to red pill. Is that a thing? I'll look into. But yes, they definitely discrimination against red pilling others and telling the truth. And of course, that's why I say the best way to break the algorithm is to like the video, comment below, watch them in full, and yeah, I'll try to be as on point and to the point as possible and bring you relevant, up-to-date information. I'm sure it matters. It's only a little bit of context I will give where needed, but you understand how long we have been fighting for our rights. And look at it. The American Revolution, betrayed. The French Revolution was betrayed during the French Revolution. But now in America, whether or not you like Trump, support Trump, doesn't matter. Because a lot of the things that go on are beyond his control. A lot of these things, require Congress, Senate. There's a lot of inertia. There's states. There's lawsuits. There's entire industries dedicated to bringing power to women, for the continued subjugation of men so that we cannot organise, become successful and return to the middle class. The middle class was the working class once upon a time. It was the rise of the shopkeeper that pushed the working class down, right? That because the shopkeeper became the new aristocracy, then came the school teacher and middle management, and of course, increasingly women are taking those roles away from us because hunger for power. And that falls under lust, I believe, or greed, one or the other. I should brush up more on my virtues and sins. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. You can support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon, buy my books, buy merch. Don't forget a like and a comment. Costs you nothing. See you in the next video, and bye for now.